After heading east from Great Barrington, we rode into the town of Otis. Otis is a quiet place in the southern part of the Berkshire Mountains along Highway 23. We pulled over in town to grab a bite to eat, and we sat down to talk with Lenny, who runs a popular hot dog stand in front of his house.
Whereabouts do you live?
Right there.
So what's the name of this town?
Otis. Population is probably around 4,000. In the summertime it goes up to about 12. Got the Farmington River here, which is good trout fishing.
Would you say it's some of the best trout fishing in the world?
No.
No?
No, I wouldn't.
How's the weather been?
The weather? Been screwy. We had a lot of rain. I mean, I shouldn't say a lot of rain. It rained quite a few days, but we didn't get too much. And the reservoir is not full over there. And that's not good. Because a lot of these businesses and towns depend on the reservoir, people coming up. If they can't put the boats in the water, they're not coming up here.
Is the weather these days any different from how you remember the weather growing up?
A lot different. When I first moved up here, we would get about 110 inches of snow a year. And the summers weren't like this. They were normal summers, you know.
Why do you think the weather is so different now than from what you remember?
I don't know. Everybody's talking about global warming, this and that and the other, but I don't know. I think it's just, you know, it runs in cycles. It's several good years and a bad year. That's about it.
So, you mentioned global warming. Are people around here talking about that?
Some, yeah. But, you know, who really knows? I don't think anybody knows, really.
Does your family talk about it?
No, not really. Not really. My two boys, when we moved up here, were like 8 and 10. But, so they just go with the flow, you know what I mean? It's like most of these young fellas today. Go with the flow. And there's not much you can do about it, really, when you come down to it. You got to take what you get. Oh man, that's a sign of old age, man.
You got out of it.
Barely.
I'm not hungry.
Good.
I stopped at the Royal Enfield. Is that yours?
It is, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh boy, there's a guy
I'm
you got to talk
surprised
to.
you recognize it.
500 Royal Enfield.
No, it's a Royal Enfield Taurus. It's a diesel.
Oh,
Is that new?
No, they made them, I think in the 90s for a couple of years, but
Wow.
it's rebuilt. It's actually a 71 frame with the engine from a Taurus in it. So
Wow.
So people tend to have a lot of questions about the bike we're traveling on, Erik. So can you tell us a little bit about this bike? What kind of bike is it?
this is a 1971 Royal Enfield diesel motorcycle. You know, it gets somewhere between 150 to 200 miles per gallon unloaded. Obviously, we're getting less than that on this trip because I'm pulling a big, heavy passenger.
Hey now.
And a big trailer full of stuff. One of the things about this bike is it's, you know, especially this model, it's based on really old technology, like 1950s technology, and which means it's really easy to work on. It also means that you have to really keep up on the maintenance of the bike. Things can rattle off pretty easily, you know. It happened a couple times at the beginning of the trip where after we stopped, I kind of was looking over the bike and I realized, we lost a nut, or we lost a bolt.
Royal Enfields were originally named after the town they were built in, Enfield, England. We wanted to hear a bit more about the history of the bike, but Enfield, England's not on our route. Enfield, Connecticut, on the other hand, is. As luck would have it, there's a motorcycle shop on Enfield Street in Enfield, Connecticut that sells Royal Enfields. We couldn't resist the novelty of stopping in to talk with motorcycle salesman Phil Gildersleeve.
Yep. All right. My name is Phil Gildersleeve. I'm the salesman here at Mark's Motorsports, one of our Royal Enfield dealers in the country in Connecticut, Enfield, Connecticut on Enfield Street. Royal Enfield is originally a British bike. In the mid-50s, They opened a second factory in India because the Indian military and police ordered so many bikes. It was cheaper just to build a factory down there than to ship all the bikes down there. Then I believe '67 they closed down the original British factory, and they've been built out of India ever since. We were actually one of the top dealers in the country up until towards the end of the year last year. We had a huge snowstorm in October, freak thing, wiped out power all across the state, Massachusetts too, and killed our riding season. So we actually got beat out by a guy in California and I believe a guy in Texas who were still riding when we were shoveling ourselves out in October. Usually the snow doesn't start until late December. We're always kind of hoping for a white Christmas. It usually doesn't start till late December or even January. And then October, end of October, almost the beginning of November, just got hammered. We had maybe 6 inches, tree branches down all over the place. Power was out across probably half the state, didn't come back for over a week and a half. We were closed for a week. It was just absolutely nutty. Our last winter was really mild other than the one storm. But the year before we had, I don't know, probably 5 feet of snow, maybe 6 or more in certain areas over the course of the winter. It was absolutely nuts.
Some people have talked about the weather being really weird lately and said, maybe it has something to do with global warming or something.
Well, we have had a few freak things. A little over a year ago, I believe it was June 1st or 2nd, we had a tornado rip through Springfield, which is actually where I'm from. At the time I was working about 5 minutes from my house and went right up the middle and I couldn't get home. It was absolutely crazy. People were freaking out because you don't see tornadoes around here. And I guess tornadoes usually they touch down for about 10 minutes at a time and they go a few miles. This thing went, I believe it was down for over an hour. It went about 30 miles. And it's I've never seen a tornado here before. I don't know if it's global warming or what, but it's strange, that's for sure.
Do you have any thoughts on whether or not global warming is caused by humans or not?
I've got a lot of people that, I've got people on both sides. They're obviously they don't call it global warming now. I guess they're calling it climate change because the winters that we had 2 years ago was crazy. So, it's a delicate ecosystem and people really are taking over the planet. So I wouldn't be surprised if we were affecting it. I don't know if we're causing the end of the world or what, but everything's in delicate balance, and if you throw anything in there, it's gonna change things a bit.
Throw anything in there like what? What do you mean?
Pouring gas into the air and covering the planet in pavement, stuff like that.